very difficult for me to be here, not because I had a job or anything, but I had, you know, the Debutantes for Peace event was earlier, that was at 9. I've got the Geodesic Dome Society after this, and the Tofu Guild at midnight, so it's a very busy night. People, someone was thanking me for my humanitarian work before I came up here. Show me an actor without a series and I'll show you a humanitarian. I've got a lot of time, folks, okay? In fact, someone reasoned that Ed Begley has personally saved tens of thousands of gallons of gasoline by not having a TV series to commute to for the past several decades. And right there, there's a lot of conservation. I want to tell you something about a man that I've known since high school, Bill Paparian, a wonderful guy, and now a Green Party candidate, and a man who I greatly respect. Something happened at Van Nuys High, I don't know what it was back in the 60s, but we were smitten with some sort of reverence for the earth. He's one of the most highly regarded leaders in the environment that I know and I've worked with. He's a terrific guy and a guy of great ethics, and the guy just gets stuff done. I think it's so important. I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but we're at a point in history where things can certainly go either way. Get out and do something, because how do I know we can do that? We've done it already. By that I mean, when you look at that air that we grew up with, Bill, in the San Fernando Valley, we grew up with some of the dirtiest air in the nation. We still have very dirty air, but we've come a long ways. A long ways. We have 4 times the amount of cars in LA. I'm not suggesting that's good news. That's just, it is. It's a fact. 4 times the amount of cars since 1970, yet we have half the ozone. We're headed in the right direction. We've made a lot of progress. We can do it. And all that stuff they say would break California. They said if you put these smog control devices on California, it will be the end of Detroit. They won't be able to make cars for California. It will be the end of business in California. You start putting stationary source reduction, restrictions on factories, boilers, and industrial furnaces. Be the end of business in California. They were wrong. Because guess what? Business, thank you. Business people like to breathe clean air too. They want their kids to breathe clean air. They want their grandkids to breathe clean air. And it turns out it's good business. They said all these businesses are going to leave California, and there a handful of businesses did leave California, dirty businesses that went somewhere else to pollute. But hundreds and hundreds of other businesses, indeed thousands of them, thrived and prospered by doing the right thing, because it's good for their bottom line. How do I know that? I've seen evidence of it, lots of different businesses who've stepped up to the plate and done the right thing environmentally, put money in their pocket. I've also seen in my personal life, all this stuff that I've done that you just heard about, up here at the podium, and you can certainly see on my website or Bill's, all that stuff is good for my bottom line. By that I mean I can live so cheaply now because of all this stuff I did. The solar panels I invested in years ago. The windmill I bought as an investment years ago as a clean green investment back in 1985. Solar panels I put in 1990. The electric car that I bought years ago. The recycled plastic fence that I never have to paint again, I never have to replace again. Made from recycled plastic. What a wonderful way to reuse those resources we're collecting, to actually do something with them. On and on, everything that I've done, from the compact fluorescent bulbs, the energy-saving thermostat, the vegetable garden, the bike riding, the public transportation, all that stuff is not just good for the environment, it's good for my pocketbook. It is good for my bottom line, and what a prosperous country we would be if we really moved aggressively in that direction at the state level and the federal level. We're not doing enough, that's the thing. We're just not doing enough, and we can do it. And I'm telling you, my lifestyle is living testimony to the fact that it's not just good for the environment, it is good economically. It's sound fiscal policy. And what a great time to do this sort of thing that is doable now. You can go out and you can buy a hybrid car now. Sadly, the electric car that I drive is not available. Anybody see a movie called Who Killed the Electric Car? There are a few people. Go and see that. There's another good movie, like An Inconvenient Truth. It should be out on a double bill with Inconvenient Truth. Go see that movie. But I'll tell you, let me not talk about what is not. Let me talk about what is. Hybrid cars are available today. Public transportation is available today. Bike lanes are available today. There should be more of them. On and on. All these things are available today. And look what you do when you make those kinds of choices. Look at what you do. You clean up the air in Pasadena, and indeed in the whole air basin. You're putting money in your pocket because these cars, and certainly a bicycle, and certainly public transportation, very cost effective. Those cars are very, the hybrids are very cost effective to drive, to fuel, and to maintain. I've had one since the year 2000. It's been lube and oil change. That's been it really since for the past 6 years. There are other alternatives. I know they exist because I'm doing it today. You can't make gasoline on the roof of your house, but you can make electrons. I know because I'm doing it. I'm fueling my electric car that I came here today. I know it's nighttime, but I came here in a solar-powered car because I store that solar power and I use it at night. I use it whenever. I store it in my car and batteries, and I get here very effectively, and very efficiently, and very quickly. So these things are possible. It's not pie in the sky. We can do it. We can do it with the kind of leadership we have from Bill. And let's have a big hand. Win this public office now and go on and win a higher public office and do the great things I know that you're capable of. I want to thank you for having me here today, and I'm just grateful to be a friend of Bill's and to be here with all the wonderful Green Party people and the many other people that are here today. It's with great pride that I thank you for asking me to come and speak. Thank you all very, very much.
Tonight to speak. And Ed, we are honoring you tonight with our first ever Arroyo Seco Greens Evergreen Award.
Wow.
To honor Ed for all the inspiration that he gives us every day with, the way he lives and the way he walks in the world. What an inspiration to all of us to wake up and think, what can we do to lessen our footprint on the earth today? And we've asked tree people to plant a tree in Ed's honor. And while we couldn't bring the tree here tonight, we have a little tree branch to give you as a symbol and also a card. So Ed, thank you.
Simply classmates at Van Nuys High School, class of 1967. In those days, the Los Angeles Unified School District was really something. I mean, we got a terrific education at Van Nuys High School, but there was the winter class and the summer class. I was the winter class and Ed was the summer class. But we weren't just classmates at Van Nuys High School. Van Nuys High School has had a reputation for years of a very fine drama department, where some of the finest actors and actresses have come out of that program. I was in that program with Ed Bagley, and at Van Nuys High School, over the years, names that you'll recognize: Robert Redford, Stacy Keach, Marilyn Monroe, Jane Russell. Many people in the entertainment industry received their first exposure to the performing arts and the entertainment industry at Van Nuys High School. And I was one of those persons. Ed and I used to be in the drama program together at Van Nuys High School. And the year that I graduated, the winter class, I received the same award that Robert Redford and Stacy Keach had received. My name is on a plaque at Van Nuys High School as the recipient of that award. And I had aspired at the time to pursue a career in the entertainment industry. and I went on to Cal State Northridge. My undergraduate degree was in theater arts. And I had every desire to pursue a career in the entertainment industry. I was trained by some of the best people in the performing arts. The late Jeff Corey, a very famous acting teacher, I know it's familiar with him, was my teacher. Bob Ellenstein, Lou Palter, and many of the kids that I went to college with and high school with, such as Ed, went on to careers in the entertainment industry. Well, we were the class of 1967, and in those days, there was a war going on in Southeast Asia. Military service was compulsory, and I carried a student deferment for 4 years. And when I graduated college in 1971, I faced the big question that the men of my generation had to confront. The question that many people that are in Washington now who are responsible for this war faced and avoided. People like Dick Cheney and Wolfowitz and many others who have been the architects of this war of aggression faced the same question that I faced. And in those days, it was easy to avoid military service. There were doctors who would write deferments for you. You could apply to be a conscientious objector. You could even take the extreme position of going to Canada and becoming an exile from our country. I had been raised a little bit differently by my parents. My mother and father met in a military hospital. My mother was a Red Cross volunteer, co-ed at UCLA, and my father was a wounded veteran from the South Pacific, and my mother had gone there to the hospital, and my parents met there. And so I came from that kind of background of a sense of duty and honor and commitment to our country. And even though I had been active in the anti-war movement on my campus, for example, I discovered years later when I got my FBI file that a letter I had written to the school newspaper about Dow Chemical, who had been responsible for the manufacture of napalm, had donated parts for the prop department at the theater arts department at Cal State Northridge, and I'd written this letter to the editor to be printed and published, and the FBI had collected that, and it was in my file. In 1971, I volunteered for military service, and I entered the United States Marine Corps, and I reported for duty at the Marine Corps Recruit Depot in San Diego, California. And it was unusual because the war was still going on. I could have avoided military service. I chose a 2-year enlistment. At the recruiting station, they tried to send me to officers' school, but it would have meant a 6-year commitment to military service. And I wanted to fulfill my military obligation to my country and return to pursue a career in the entertainment industry. If you've ever seen the film Full Metal Jacket, the genius director Stanley Kubrick accurately depicts what I experienced in the summer of 1971, going through the training of the United States Marine. And I completed that training, and I was assigned to duty at the infantry training school at Camp San Onofre, which is at the northern end of the base. And I was put in charge of the supply unit. I was the NCO in charge of the supply unit at Camp San Onofre. And the other Marines looked up to me a little bit because I was a little bit older, and I had, in many instances, more education than many of the officers that we were serving under. I was a non-commissioned officer by that point. This is 1972. We never knew our first names. We always called each other by our last names, and the other Marines had a hard time pronouncing our Armenian last names, so my nickname became Pappy. And one day some of the Marines came to me and they said, "Pappy, you've got to help out this Marine." And there was, in 1972, there was extreme racial conflict in the ranks of the American Armed Forces. There were actual race riots that were occurring on Marine bases, for example, on Okinawa. And here at home, domestically, there was a kind of racial conflict that you wouldn't believe, where people would actually start fighting with each other like a riot. And there was a cell of the Ku Klux Klan that was active on Camp Pendleton. And they had ambushed a black Marine. And this black Marine was about to go what we call in the Marine Corps UA, or unauthorized absence. In the Army, they would refer to it as AWL. And the Marines came to me, the kids that, I call them kids, we were young, really young at the time. Pappy, you got to help out this black Marine. You got to talk to him. He's going to go UA. And in those days, if you left the base, there was a war still going on. You became a fugitive. The FBI would pursue you. Now, I had no legal training at all. And this, I'll never forget his name. His name was Brian. He was from Georgia. He was what we call a retread. He had tried to pursue life outside of the military. He had served a tour in Vietnam as a door gunner in the Army and had gone back home to Georgia, couldn't make it, came back into the service, and then he got ambushed by the KKK. And they had beaten him so badly that he'd lost a testicle. And I began to counsel him. I picked up the Uniform Code of Military Justice, I read the Navy regulations, and he became, I didn't realize it at the time, he became my first client. And something happened to me, something transformed me in this experience. And I'll never forget the day that he received his medical discharge and he was going back home to Georgia to go to junior college on the GI Bill. And he shook my hand and he thanked me. And that experience in a place I never would have imagined, infantry training school, Marine Corps base at Camp Pendleton, Camp St. Honorford, where they train Marines to join the Fleet Marine Force, all the advanced infantry training that goes on there. And if you can imagine the scene of me shaking hands, 21 years old, in front of the mess hall at Camp St. Honorford, it transformed my life. I realized that there was something about making the system work for someone that the system was not really working for, that gave me a sense of fulfillment and satisfaction that no theatrical performance, no directing of a movie could ever give me. And I realized then that I wanted to go to law school, something I never dreamed I would ever do. And so when I was discharged honorably from the Marine Corps in 1973, I entered law school, as Greg mentioned, on the GI Bill at Southwestern University School of Law, and ultimately became a criminal defense attorney. I wanted to share that with you because that dream that I have of pursuing a career in the entertainment industry, I think at least one of my three sons is going to pursue. I have a suspicion that one of these boys is going to become a famous director or a famous actor or something in the entertainment industry. I think that the Paparian name will finally live on in Van Nuys High School class of 67. Could someone bring me that bottle of water that's there on the table? Because I'm getting kind of a parched throat. Matt, would you? Thanks very much. Article 1, Section 2 of the Constitution of the United States says that no one can be a member of the House of Representatives who, quote, shall not have attained to the age of 25 years and been 7 years a citizen of the United States, and who shall not, when elected, be an inhabitant of that state in which he shall be chosen, unquote. Now, all of the candidates for Congress for the 29th District of California fulfill this constitutional requirement to, quote, be an inhabitant of that state in which he shall be chosen, unquote. But one, Adam Schiff. By the way, there's another candidate here tonight, and I hope she's still here. I want to introduce her because she hasn't been introduced yet. And if Linda Lamas is still here, can I recognize you, Linda? She's the candidate for the Peace and Freedom Party. Apparently she left. When Adam was first elected in the year 2000, Adam did fulfill the constitutional requirement of being an inhabitant of California because he purchased a house in Burbank in 1998. But after Adam was elected to a second term in November of 2002, he sold that house in Burbank and bought a two-story, 3,420 square foot mansion in the exclusive Windsor Hills section of Potomac, Maryland. Adam Schiff and his family have been inhabitants of Montgomery County, Maryland ever since. His children are enrolled in school there, and his wife is an active PTA volunteer. Several months after he purchased the home in Potomac, Maryland, Adam registered to vote at an apartment in Burbank. That apartment is 1,000 square feet, only 400 square feet larger than the 600 square foot garage of the mansion in Potomac, Maryland. Now, I really don't know if that means he can't legally run for the House. He's a smart lawyer, and I'm sure he's got the technicalities wired, and the Democratic Party's got the technicalities wired. But it sure means, in my book, that he shouldn't. He doesn't live here except on paper. He doesn't drive the freeways or ride the gold line or breathe the same air that we breathe every day. He and his family have no idea. His kids don't go to school here. His wife doesn't shop here. He knows about our schools and our lives by what he reads in the papers and what he picks up in quickie visits to get reelected. Ladies and gentlemen, I say that's not right. If you go to Washington, you should continue to live in the district. Your family should live in the district. Our congressman should have an apartment in D.C. and come home to us and his family on weekends and over breaks, not the other way around. Our congressman should want to spend as much time as he can here to remember who we are. And maybe that's why Adam has lost touch with us, because he just hasn't been here enough to understand that our district doesn't agree with his co-sponsorship of the Patriot Act, for example. And folks, that's why I'm running for Congress. The Republican Party has gotten us into this mess. The Democrat Party machine is too frightened of the administration to stand up to them. And we, ordinary voters, are frustrated that we can't get anything done. Well, folks, I'm here to tell you tonight that I can get things done. I will not owe any allegiance to any party machine in Washington. When I go to represent you, I will be back as often as I can. Because I can tell you that my wife, Sona, sure as heck won't put up with living in Washington. And my kids are grown up. And maybe that's part of the problem, too. Maybe it isn't a job for a guy with small kids like Adam Schiff. My friends, our nation is in a crisis. During the nearly 5 years since George Bush has unleashed his war on terrorism, the policies of this administration has assumed an increasingly and shockingly unconstitutional, illegal, and even criminal dimension. The tragedy of 9/11 has been used as a pretext for asserting global military domination and even a cynical contempt for humanity. Although the majority of Americans oppose the occupation of Iraq and the domestic policies of the Bush administration, the Democratic Party is simply incapable of serious political opposition to this ultra-right administration and functions rather as a cowardly accomplice. Our troops in Iraq must be brought home now. Not next week, not next month, not later this year, but now. It is an undeniable fact that the invasion of Iraq was based upon lies. There were no weapons of mass destruction. Saddam Hussein was not collaborating with Al-Qaeda. The war was not launched to fight terrorism, but rather to secure the strategic oil resources of Iraq. Those responsible for this illegal and unprovoked war must be held accountable. and the families of those brave American soldiers and Marines who have lost their lives, and the men and women who have been wounded must be well cared for and fairly compensated. This war, supposedly designed to foster democracy and the rule of law overseas, has been used instead to justify bypassing the rule of law in America. The Bush administration is assuming military and police powers that no previous administration has ever claimed, not even during World War II. They have repudiated international law and asserted the right to attack and occupy any country they choose. Established a network worldwide of prisons where people can be kidnapped and tortured. And they have begun illegal domestic surveillance of us, the citizens of the United States of America. That's why, when I'm elected, I will co-sponsor House Resolutions 635 and 636 to begin the impeachment of Bush and Cheney, and why I support Resolution 639. George Bush must be impeached. The Democratic Party offers no real opposition to Bush's contempt for the Constitution. For too long, the Democrats and our own Democrat congressmen have sat impotently on the sidelines as the Bush administration laid waste to Iraq and American laws simultaneously. Certainly, a very few Democrats have overcome their fear of vigorously confronting the machinations of this president, but only a few, and only too late, and not our congressmen. A few weak expressions of concern by our representatives simply highlight how completely the incumbent has failed us. Make no mistake about it. Adam Schiff is a nice guy and probably a fine neighbor, but whether he is unwilling or unable to do what we need him to do, to take the risk of losing his safe Democratic seat in order to tell this president no more, hardly matters. Adam has let us down. Adam let us down on May 25th, 2005, when he voted against a call for the withdrawal of U.S. troops from Iraq. Adam let us down on June 20th, 2005, when he voted against an amendment which would prohibit Bush from starting more wars against other countries without authorization from Congress. Adam let us down on July 20th, 2005, when he voted in favor of an amendment which affirmed that it is U.S. policy to remain in Iraq. And Adam let us down on March 13th of this year, when he was only one of 5 congressmen who attended Bush's invitation-only speech at George Washington University, where Bush delivered the first of a new round of pro-war speeches. On March 18th, almost 20,000 of us gathered at an anti-war protest in Hollywood to commemorate the 3rd anniversary of the invasion of Iraq. That protest was organized by the Los Angeles chapter of the Answer Coalition. And Answer has been represented here tonight by my dear friends Ian, Mona, and Bob. Bob Morris, by the way. Designer of my website, my campaign website, and if you visited it, you realized that somebody knew what he was doing. It wasn't me in designing that website. It's Bob Morris. And Bob, thank you for all that hard work. I was a speaker on that program as a member of Veterans for Peace. Our motto is, bring them back out of Iraq. Let me close this evening with the same message that I delivered that day at that protest. More than 360,000 members of our armed forces have been deployed to Iraq in the last 3 years. More than 2,500 have been killed, almost 18,000 wounded. Of the wounded, almost half were so seriously injured that they couldn't continue their military service. 6% of the wounded require amputations. 20% have been diagnosed with serious psychological disorders. We must make sure that they are all properly cared for. what do they have to say about this war? The men and women that have been fighting it. According to the highly reliable Zogby poll taken of our troops interviewed at several locations throughout Iraq in January and February, an overwhelming majority of 72% of these American troops serving in Iraq think the U.S. should exit Iraq this year, and more than 1 in 4 say the troops should leave immediately. I too say, bring them back out of Iraq. Thank you very much for being here this evening.
At Green Party meetings. What did you think about our candidate tonight?
Oh, our candidate's fabulous.
Yes.
He's really wonderful. You should vote for him. And I think he's going to win, especially because there's no one else in the primary. So so I feel really confident about that. But no, it was a beautiful event, and he speaks really well, and it was a great story. And I didn't.
I mean, obviously, we might get a movie, but
But what, Tara? What part of the concept is?
just for your own.
No. I'm sorry. I thought no. I'm going to get films from them and edit something. Thank you. I'm going to edit something, from this.